Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of Fire Red Lights. With me as always is Mr. Anthony Scascoods.
Hello.
And we'll kick off with this week's weekly news. And firstly we have the news that Rosberg was punished for the incident by Mercedes, but not by the S.p.A.
Yeah, so the S.p.A. have said that they're taking no further action. It's not, their problem essentially. Mercedes have said that they've punished Rosberg. They haven't specified what. We can only assume that it was like a fine, like a large fine, or like a pay cut or something like that. So yeah, I don't think it'll ever come out how they've actually punished him, but it's.
I think it'll come out in a few years, but by then it won't be important.
No.
They're only retired and stuff, but
yeah, and importantly, they have said that the both of them will be allowed to race. They're not stopping them from racing.
I mean, I've heard people say that the punishment should be like, I don't know, like they have team orders for Lewis for the next couple of races, but I'm like, well, then that just does that spoils the championship? Well, then we know by the next 3 races we know what the result's going to be.
It doesn't just spoil the championship though, because it will just create more problems and more reason for Rosberg to disobey them and to cause more problems.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, that's a bad idea. Letting them race is just the best thing you can do, because they're both drivers and that's what they're there for.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, Alonso has said he will not be leaving Ferrari. He will be staying with them, which means he won't be moving to McLaren, and obviously concerns about Button not keeping his seat for next year, well, that's probably changed. McLaren haven't stated anyone else they were wanting. I think the main reason why Button would have been leaving was if they brought Alonso in, because they've been, really enforcing that idea this year.
Yeah, I never understood this whole McLaren trying to go after Alonso, because if Alonso's not happy with the Ferrari, why would he take 1 or 2 steps down to the McLaren at the moment? And yeah, we know Honda's coming, but if you're Alonso, I'm going to sit there and wait a year to see how the Honda engine is. There's no guarantee it'll be fantastic. I mean, everyone remembers the old McLaren Honda. When Honda first entered in the 60s, they weren't the best. They did all right, got a few wins, but they weren't amazing. Their first try F1 didn't go so well, and neither did their second try with Mike Jensen and all them in the 2000s. So there's no guarantee Honda's going to be amazing.
No, but I imagine the idea is that Honda are going to be good anyway, because they were one of the first car manufacturers to actually get into hybrid engines. So they've already, had a lot of development in that side of things. So they kind of know what they're doing to an extent.
But they are as well. They're behind the curve. They're a year behind the curve on these particular engines, and all the other teams, they have much more data on it. So I think it's the only thing to do. I mean, while you're in a Jensen, he's doing a good job, and you can just sign another year contract with him, and he'll bring home the points for you and everything. And I just don't see any reason why they think Alonso would leave Ferrari for McLaren. The only teams he's going to leave for would be Red Bull and Mercedes. Well, anyway, as we were just mentioning Honda have come out and said 2 things. First of all, they've said they will be open to customer teams in 2016, and they also said that they expect to win next year with McLaren some races. So quite ambitious, I think.
It is ambitious, but like I said, I don't think it's like completely out of the question. It all depends. I mean, Mercedes came out this year with a storming engine, like better than everyone else's. It's possible that Honda could do a similar thing. I think it would be hard for them to have a better engine than Mercedes, because they already started off well and will have an even better engine next year. But it's possible they'll have a better engine than Renault, because everyone knows about their problems. Ferrari,
McLaren's aerodynamics have really suffered the past 2 years.
Yeah, and it's shown, because obviously they've got the best engine.
Well, the fact that Williams with the same engine are doing a better job. I mean, I think that says how things have changed the past couple of years. in the aerodynamics department. I mean, I think like losing people like Paddy Lowe really hurt them.
Definitely, definitely. So moving on to our next topic, Whitmarsh has finally left McLaren. I think it's kind of been on the cards for a long time, and he's kind of fulfilling his contract. So, you know, everyone knows that Whitmarsh and Dennis never got on. Dennis was basically trying to get him out for a long time, and it's finally happened.
They did get on when Dennis was running, and he was in second because he was like his little protege.
Yeah. But after Whitmarsh took over I don't think Dennis was happy about the way the team was going.
So now on to the discussion point for this week, and we thought we would try to discuss who is the best qualifier on the current grid.
Yeah, this is a tougher point than we thought it'd be.
Well, if it was before this season, it would probably, for most people, be between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. And we know how the quality of drivers like Alonso and Button and Lewis had pretty damn good qualifying records against both of them. And Vettel had a pretty massive record against Webber. And we knew from his early days Webber was probably a better qualifier than racer, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, that it seemed pretty concrete. Alonso not as there in qualifying as he is in the race, and Kimi recent years, not been the best qualifier as he was in his early days, been more of a racer, and of course Button more of a racer. But this year, with Rosberg and Ricciardo both beating their teammates in qualifying, it's kind of turned this whole thing on its head.
It really has. I mean, it's tough. I mean, like we said before this season, I'd have probably clearly said Lewis Hamilton because he's always been well regarded for his one-off pace. But that's changed this year. I'm not sure if it's the pressure or the fact that he could could have the chance of winning another world championship, or whether Rosberg is actually faster than him now in a one-off.
I wonder if it's just the characteristics of the car, because it's less about downforce and more about like high speed. And we've seen like Vettel and Lewis, when they can get their lap together, they can out-qualify the teammate. But how many times have we seen both of them make mistakes this season? And I wonder if Rosberg and Ricciardo, they're both a bit smoother and they don't push the limit as much on their laps. Like, they push it pretty hard, but probably not as much. I wonder if it's just benefiting them this season that, we saw Lewis make a mistake in Austria and Canada as well, and, so...
I mean, I don't know if it is that, because if you think about it, in quite a few weekends, race weekends, Hamilton has been quicker than Rosberg through most of the practice sessions and the early qualifying sessions. It just seems to be that last qualifying session where Hamilton seems to just...
That's the opposite of what he was in the past. This is what I don't understand. Like, he used to always save his best for that one qualifying session. And it does feel like Rosberg is purposely playing his cards close to his chest. Like in Canada, Lewis topped every practice session, I think, and it's his stomping ground. He does brilliant there. And then Rosberg just came out, bam, and he was like, "Come and get me." And I still can't believe Rosberg out-qualified him at Canada. I still can't believe that.
Yeah.
But even so, I think Lewis claimed he had a tiny little upcut, but I just think that was I think Rosberg just pulled out a really terrific lap there, and I just can't. It doesn't, and I can't fathom it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I can only hope that, especially from this Grand Prix onwards, that Hamilton really steps his game up in qualifying, because, as I say, he was so well regarded in that sense, and he just seems to have lost it this year. And as we say, it's not entirely sure on where he's been losing this, but I think he's got the pace there. I think he's just struggling to get that perfect lap that you need.
Yeah, I think also one of the other best qualifiers on the grid is Hulkenberg. I mean, even you look at Perez, pretty close in points, but the qualifying heavily in his favour. Same with Gutierrez, out-qualified Di Resta. I really think that he is... I mean, he's a great racer, but he's a particularly great qualifier. I mean, heck, he put the Williams on pole a few years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult to pick, especially this year. But Rosberg's really been, yeah, doing a great job this year as far as poles.
Yeah, I do think Vettel's starting to turn it around as well against Ricciardo in qualifying. Maybe not as much in the race, but recently he seems to be turning it around in qualifying a bit more. So maybe he's getting used to it.
I like to hope so, and like I said, I like to hope that Hamilton will do the same. He'll have that, but you know, he's had a lot of bad luck recently in qualifying anyway with car failures. So
I don't know. There's only I mean that's only twice. There's still all the other ones, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know that.
That's what worries me. That's Lewis's biggest strength, and Rosberg has really taken it to him this season. And he did pretty well against him last season in qualifying as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see.
We shall see. Okay, so moving on to our speculation section. This week it's Force India. Yeah. What do you think? Position at the end of this year? Do they have a chance going further?
I think they're just going to hold the position they're in, because I think that all the teams ahead of them are better than them. And Force India start every street season really strong, and then it feels like as they get towards the end of the season, they give up on that car and put all their resources into the next season to start strong.
Yeah.
You always see, like, in those Bahrain races when Di was coming fourth or whatever, and then late in the year they'd be like struggling to get in the points or stuff, and like it seems like the same pattern every year since maybe like 2010 or something. So I think they're going to drop off a bit. I think we've already seen them dropping off, but obviously the teams behind them can't catch them, so they're going to stay where they are, I think.
Well, there's only 2 points between them and McLaren at the moment, so yeah, they still have the chance to get higher, but they're not getting any higher than fifth. That's for certain.
Well, I disagree, just because McLaren, the word is they seem to be continually developing their car throughout the season. Whereas I'm pretty sure Force India have kind of, putting everything, like I say, they're putting it into next year again to try and get a good start. So
yeah,
I mean, in recent races in like Hungary and Spa and stuff, they haven't really been anywhere. So I think it's just they have limited resources, so that they kind of seem to do this every year. So I think that's the plan that's emerging. But the driver lineup for next year, I think it's going to be the same lineup, which makes me very sad, because I think Hulkenberg should be in the better team.
We say this every year, but I don't know. He seems to struggle with races, and I don't know if it's because of the funding thing. Because I obviously I remember, was it 2012 when he put that? He qualified in pole in Brazil. Was it 2010?
Yeah.
Oh, it was that long ago, God. And then I remember the next year he didn't get a race seat, and I found it so bizarre.
Well, but it was funny because they brought Maldonado in, and it's just completely stupid, the whole thing, because everyone can see how talented this guy is, and he's highly regarded by every person who knows what they're talking about, like in the paddock, and the fans at home, and even the team bosses. Like when they do their end of year thing, he's always up there in like the best driver performances. And you watch races like Korea last year when he was like fending off Hamilton and Alonso and stuff. I mean, this guy is the complete package, and it's just stupid. I mean, look at say Bottas and Ricciardo. It's like, just give these guys chances. Like, experience, yes, counts for a lot, but you've got to give the guys chances to prove what they can do.
I think, a smart move for Hulkenberg would be to Williams. I mean, Williams are on that progression up.
Back to the team that fight.
Yeah, but I'd say Massa is he's dropping in performance again, which is a bit of a concern. But he is getting to that age where
he's bringing money with him now, though, as well.
Yeah.
Plus, I think that even if Massa goes, they'll take Felipe Nasr, the GP2 driver, because he is going to bring even more Brazilian money, and he's a really good driver. I do rate him as well. But anyway, enough of Hulkenberg, because we haven't even mentioned Perez, but I think he does a really good job for them, and he'll stay there.
Yeah, most likely.
So the potential position next year, I think Force India the past few years they've just kind of been in this like sixth position, and I just see them maintaining that. I think it's just the same pattern every year.
I'm not too sure. I mean, with Force India, you always see a bit more progression every year.
Well, you say that, but they finished sixth last year, and sixth the year before, sixth the year before.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, but I think, I mean, you see, like this year they've had so many chances to get on podiums, and they just, because of drivers and stuff like that, they've just not been able to do it. But they've had the opportunities to be on podiums.
Well, I disagree. I think they've only had one chance to be on a podium, and I think they did it. I think they've had another real chance. To me, I feel like they've stalled in the progression for a few years now. I think they've just been in the same position. Like I say, at the start of the season, they do very well, and then they drop back again. And, I think the real progression you see is teams like Williams. Like, that is real progression.
Mm.
I just think Force India, they're just like going to be that team that stays right in the middle, and
So are they just stuck in a loop? Do you think where they're just
I think it is because I mean they seem to be struggling for funding a lot, and they don't really seem to have any really like great technical people there. They do a great job of what they have, but. It does feel like at the moment we're not seeing. There's nothing I see right now that makes me think they're going to be doing any better next year.
But what's the answer to that? What can Force India do to get further up? Because at the moment, obviously they can't give up on the season too early to focus on next year's car, because obviously they need to finish as high as possible for money for next year's car.
You need a perfect storm, like what Williams got. Like Williams greatly improved their aerodynamics between the year. They got a whole new engine deal, which kind of transformed their car quite a bit. But also, Claire Williams really put together a lot of clever sponsorship with Williams. Like getting that Martini deal and stuff was pretty genius. And Force India. I mean, it's like, has anything really changed there the past so many years apart from the driver lineups? I mean, they even took Suttle because of money. And even though Perez is a great driver, they're having to take part of the reason he's there is because he brings money. And they're struggling, and especially with the spending of these new technologies, I can't see them doing any better.
Yeah, it seems they're stuck in their ways at the moment. So potential position for next year, you think it's just going to be the same?
Yeah, 6-ish, I think.
As long as I think other teams above them right now don't have a bad year next year, I think it's probably going to be about the same.
And now on to the most splendid of segments, Naven's Numbers. Okay, so now for the pre-race predictions for the Italian Grand Prix. Here's some things to keep in mind. First of all, Alonso has been on the podium every race for Ferrari here, all 4 years, so I hope he'll be on it again, because he deserves it. Vettel, surprisingly, this kind of surprised me when I thought about he's won it the most of everyone on the grid. He's won it 3 times. Alonso's won it twice, and Hamilton won it once. And no one else on the grid has won the Italian Grand Prix, which is really surprising to me.
That is crazy.
Yeah, like Raikkonen hasn't, Button hasn't, this was really like, what? It's really surprised me.
It is quite surprising, because if you think about it, obviously it's so high speed. I know Vettel won his first one here in Toro Rosso, but the other 2 is in a Red Bull, which is, it has always been regarded as the slowest car pretty much on track. So it's crazy that he's the highest winner when he's in a car that is essentially slower than everyone else's.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Alonso has been on pole here twice, Lewis on pole here twice, and Vettel on pole here 3 times. So again, those 3 locking out that of everyone on the grid. Vettel has only been on the podium when he's won. So if you see him in a podium spot, you might be thinking something might happen to the car ahead of him or whatever. And this is to do with the actual race, but I was doing some numbers because I was thinking about the qualifying recently with Rosberg. Like, he's been on pole quite a bit, not won a lot. So I worked out Rosberg's had 11 pole positions. He's won 4 races from pole position, which is a ratio of a win every 2.75 poles.
Mhm.
So therefore, I'm going to do it with Lewis. Lewis, 35 poles, and he's won 15 races from pole position, which is a ratio win of a win every 2.33 poles. I think that's a really low conversion record for both of them. Or sorry, really high conversion record for both of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a very good conversion record. That's my point.
Well, as we said before, Hamilton's race pace is a bit less than his qualifying pace, and it's especially on a lot of these tracks that it's so easy to take them down into the first corner, and pole position isn't always the best place to start.
It is, but I mean, I'm sure. I'm not the numbers on it. I'm sure if we look at, say, Alonso and Vettel's and even Raikkonen's, I'm pretty sure they have a good conversion rate. But I just thought it's a pretty bad conversion rate for them both. And this year, how many of the races have been won from pole? Not too many, really. So
No.
I think he's just trying to say, whoever's on pole might not necessarily be the winner.
That's true.
Okay, so now we'll talk about which teams will do well. So should we just get Mercedes out of the way?
I think it's obvious. I mean, they've got the best engine and the best aerodynamics, so I think it's going to be hard. Their closest rivals probably going to be Williams, but I wouldn't even count out Red Bull. They've looked like in the last race, their straight line speed was quite surprising. So, Red Bull still even have a shout in getting in it, but I still think it's going to be hard to knock the Mercedes off without them knocking each other off.
I think this track will really suit Williams because it is a bit like an Austria or Bahrain, high speed but very stop starts. Not as much like Spa where you're constantly on it. It's a very stop start circuit, and I think the Williams suits that a lot. So
yeah, I think the main concern for Mercedes would be braking. Seems to be their main struggle this year, and obviously quite a lot of braking in Monza.
A lot of heavy braking, yeah. So who will win? I mean, I'm not sure. There's no logic really behind this, but I'm just going to go for Lewis from pole, and I think it's mainly because I want this to happen. Because I'm not as, I'm pretty neutral between the two, but after what happened in Belgium, really needs to get back into this championship battle now.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I mean, I'm not saying I think Lewis will win, but what I will say is he needs to win.
I will say Rosberg has never really, from when I was looking through, never really done anything that impressive at this track, even in thingy cars. So
yeah, but we have said this in previous races, and he still managed to pull it out of the bag. So
yeah, well, sometimes that was because he hasn't had the best cars.
Yeah.
But even here, I was looking through and not really anything that really stood out as a fourth in a not great car or something. So we'll see. Rosberg, we'll see. But I'm just gonna put my chips on Lewis.
You can't count Rosberg out, but like I said, I think Lewis really needs to bring it this week. Otherwise, it's pretty much title hopes over if he doesn't bring in some good results. I know his main focus should be finishing in front of Rosberg, regardless of where it's at. But obviously, he needs a lot of points. He needs maximum points. Okay, and that's the end of this episode. So we will end, as usual, with our community question. So who do you think is the best qualifier? Leave it in the comments below or tweet us on our Twitter accounts below. And we shall see you next week. Bye-bye for now.